Hello everybody, my name's Nerdy Lover and welcome to yet another episode of our football betting show here on YouTube, Premier League edition. And unfortunately with the passing of Her Majesty the Queen, the football across the British Isles was cancelled and rescheduled for later in the season, so the scrubbed out predictions from last week's episode are no longer a factor. Which means this intro is going to be very short. There's no bets to recap. We're still at 75% win rate in the Premier League, and we have a very small £3.90 profit. We're going to jump straight into the predictions for this weekend coming up, the 17th and 18th of September. But if you do like the predictions here, you find them helpful to organise your own betting thoughts, please think about dropping a like down below and subscribing to the channel. And without any further delays, we're going to get into the predictions. First up, we're at the Forest ground as 19th place Nottingham Forest host 10th place Fulham, and Forest have lost each of their last 3 games in the Premiership by a margin of 11 goals to 2. This includes allowing a 2-goal lead to slip against an almost certain relegation candidate in Bournemouth. Forest need to start scoring if they're going to have any hope of remaining in the division, as they are the second lowest scoring side, averaging 0.7 goals per game. To make matters worse, they have conceded the third most goals, allowing 2.3 per game. And this is in spite of Dean Henderson's heroic between the sticks. Fulham have started much brighter than their fellow promoted side, with 2 wins, 2 draws and 2 losses, which is a fine record when you consider they have played Liverpool, Spurs and Arsenal in half of their first 6 games. Now, Fulham are both scoring and conceding 1.5 goals per game, which is pretty average, and actually has them in the middle of the table. It also, for this fixture, means they do have a statistical edge against Forest, both scoring more and conceding fewer goals per game. This will have a lot to do with their star player, Alexander Mitrovic. The Serbian has scored 6 goals from 6 starts, finding the net with a really strong 22% conversion rate. As well as scoring, Mitrovic has also been instrumental in creative play, creating 1 key chance per game for his teammates. No assist to show for that yet, but that's more down to his teammates finishing than it is his production of assist-worthy chances. I'm going to be doing 2 bets for this particular match. First of all, we're going to be laying Nottingham Forest at about 1-2 in an accumulator. And we're also going to be backing Fulham on the exchange at odds of about 8-5 for a half stake of £10. I think Fulham will have enough to get the job done here, but with such a long period off, odds of 2-1 scares me a little bit, so hence the half stake. Next up, 11th place Newcastle host 13th place Bournemouth, and Newcastle have started off quite well. They do only have 1 win, but they've secured 4 draws and only 1 defeat, and that did come in the dying seconds against Liverpool at Anfield. Newcastle have looked very competitive this season and will start to look to rack up points sooner than later in order to give themselves a good shot at competing for one of those elusive European places. Arsenal will be kicking themselves following last game's 0-0 draw against Crystal Palace, as they let off 23 shots and created 5 clear-cut opportunities. But the heroics of Vicente Guaita in the Palace goal managed to keep the Magpies out. On the other hand, Bournemouth are coming off that heroic comeback against Nottingham Forest. Following the sacking of Scott Parker, they may start to believe they can stay up this year. I, however, do not feel this is likely. Obviously, the 9-0 defeat to Liverpool does contaminate a lot of the data concerning Bournemouth, but if we try our best to remove this from our analysis, Bournemouth are conceding almost 2 goals per game and creating only 0.9 goals per game. The Cherries have also struggled to create clear-cut scoring opportunities, averaging 0.3 per game. This means their goal scorers need to be clinical and turn half chances into fully fledged goals, which is unsustainable for long-term success and avoiding the drop. There's not much relevant head-to-head data to look at, but I think I've made a solid enough case to suggest that Newcastle will win this one. At odds of 1-2 at St James Park, I'll be adding them to our selection of Fulham double chance to come up with a double for this week's accumulator. Next up, we have 14th placed Wolverhampton Wanderers hosting 2nd place and reigning champions Manchester City. Wolves are unbeaten in their last 3 Premier League games, and they recently came off a 1-0 win against Southampton. The main man for Wolverhampton has been Ruben Neves. He's been their standout player. The 25-year-old talisman has played every minute of the season for Wolves. He's scored once and he's yet to provide an assist, but this may be more of a function of poor attacking players in front of him than his ability to create. Neves is opening up 1.1 key goal-scoring chances per game, and his defensive work has been very solid, and it will be imperative against the reigning champions here. Neves boasts a 1.8 interceptions per game and 4.2 tackles per 90. Manchester City, on the other hand, are coming off the back of a 4-0 win against Sevilla, and confidence is high in Pep Guardiola's camp. In fact, his men are unbeaten in all competitions, and whilst they've not made a perfect start, dropping points to Aston Villa and Newcastle, Kevin De Bruyne and Erling Haaland do look dangerous, and you fear the worst for Wolves here. With that said, though, Manchester City have failed to keep a clean sheet in their last 7 English Premier League fixtures. They are averaging 1 goal conceded per game this season, but they've made up for this by scoring an average of 3.3 goals per game. When we look at the head-to-head records, Manchester City have beaten Wolves in each of the last 4 games, an aggregate of 13 goals to 3 over that 4-game sample. Wolves are unbeaten from home through the 3 games they've played at Molineux this season, and Manchester City have only won 1 of 3 away games so far, so you might want to exercise a little bit of caution. Basically, how do I think this game's going to go? Wolves have struggled to score. Manchester City score quite a lot. Even if Wolves score 1, I do fancy Man City to score 3, 4, or even more. I think Manchester City minus 1.5 on the Asian handicap line is a pretty solid number, and I would like to take them here for our 3rd selection. From the West Country to London, our next match features Spurs, who sit in 3rd place against bottom of the table Leicester City. And Tottenham Hotspurs under Conte are off to a good, unbeaten start this year. 4 wins, 2 draws, and without a defeat in the Premier League, coming most recently off a 2-0 win against 10-men Marseille in the Champions League. Tottenham Hotspurs are averaging 2 goals per game, creating 1.8 key chances per game, and they are tight at the back, conceding less than 1 goal per game at 0.7. Leicester have started, well, incredibly poorly. They're bottom of the league, and they've lost 5 of their first 6 games so far. Now, whilst Leicester's attacking numbers don't look too bad, they are scoring 1.3 goals per game and creating 1.3 chances per game. It's very much been... Their issue has very much been defence. The Foxes are conceding 2.7 goals per game, and Wilfred Ndidi does not look like a fit replacement for the departure of Wesley Fofana. The holding midfielder has not transitioned well to life at a centre-back. Somehow he's averaging a 6.67 match rating per game, but he looks uncomfortable at the back, and teams are taking advantage of his poor positional sense. When we look at the head-to-head record, Spurs have won each of the last 3 games against Leicester City, and both teams to score has come in 5 of the last 7 games. And these statistics very much fit the narrative of Leicester's season so far. The pattern of being able to score a goal and then not being able to keep it tight at the back to lose. Spurs are roughly 1-2 to win the game outright, but something tells me that we're going to have a goal fest. What I'm fancying is putting a half stake on Spurs to win and both teams to score for our penultimate selection here. Our final selection is probably the highlight match of the Premier League of the weekend for the Premier League fixtures, as 6th place Chelsea hosts 7th place Liverpool. Following a slow start to the year, Thomas Tuchel was let go by Chelsea following the 1-0 loss to Dinamo Zagreb. Tuchel has been replaced by Graham Potter, and it's going to be a very tricky first league test against Liverpool. Liverpool themselves have had a less than stellar start to the year, right from game 1, drawing against Fulham and then losing to a Manchester United team that were, at that time, in the relegation zone. They well and truly lost the plot in the most recent match day against Napoli, losing by 4-1. And honestly, it could have been much worse. Despite my catastrophizing, Liverpool have only lost a single game in the Premier League this year, and they could climb into the European spots with a win here against Chelsea. The key man for the Reds has been Bobby Firmino. The Brazilian is having a bit of a renaissance here and perhaps responding to the signing of Darwin Núñez. Big Bob has scored 3 goals and assisted 3 from 5 starts, and he's only averaging 69 minutes per game. When we look at the head-to-head, Each of the last 4 competitive fixtures have finished in draws with goals at a premium. Liverpool have failed to keep a clean sheet in 4 of their last 6 Premier League games. For Chelsea, that's 5 in their last 6, failing to keep a clean sheet since matchday 1 with their 1-0 win against Everton. Despite the head-to-head record between Chelsea and Liverpool, I do fancy both teams to score at roughly 2/3. Not incredibly confident. I think we need to exercise some caution because it is Potter's first league game in charge of the Blues. So it's going to be a little £10 stake here for our final bet of the episode. So we have made our selections and we do have 5 bets that we're interested in. Starting off with Forest versus Fulham. We're going to be taking Fulham to win at odds of about 3-2, £10 stake to return, £15 and 40p. Fulham also feature in our double, which is going to be laying Forest and adding that to the Newcastle selection at odds of about 9/10, £20 to return, £18 and 20p. On the following day, we do have Manchester City to win by 2 or more goals, as we have -1.5 on the Asian handicap, odds of 0.85, £20 stake to return, £17 on the button. And next up, Spurs versus Leicester. We are going to put a half stake on Spurs to win the game and Leicester to score. So we're going to have odds of about 3-2, so £10 stake to return, £16. And the final match of this episode of the Premier League match day, and also of the Premier League in total before the international break. Chelsea versus Liverpool. We're going to have both teams to score, odds of 0.7, so we have £10 to return, £6.90. This weekend, we're going to be risking £70 in order to hopefully pick up as much as £73 and 50p. Will we do so? Well, please tune in for next week's episode to find out. Until then, my name's been Nerdy Lover, and as always, have yourself a lovely day.